Right. Thank you, Haley. And thanks everyone for attending today's presentation. We're excited to have you. If you've registered, you're going to get this recording in your email inbox after this event, and all recordings are available on our website, which is funding.asu.edu. And we'll get right into it. All right. Next slide, Laura. So this is PDW number six, Persuasive Proposal Writing. I'm Emily Wilcoxon, the Assistant Director for Research Development at the Knowledge Enterprise. And I'm joined by my colleague, Laura York here, who is a Proposal Manager in Research Development. And we have an exciting agenda for you today. So this is the agenda. Laura is going to start with the art of rhetoric, which includes academic versus grant writing. She's going to cover the 3 pillars of the art of rhetoric, which includes ethos, or appealing to trust, pathos, appealing to emotion, and logos, appealing to reason. And then I'm going to go over how you are crafting a persuasive proposal. So this is actual tools for being persuasive, and I'll go over compliance, storyboarding, and then give some very concrete tips and tricks on persuasive proposal writing. And with that, I'll hand it off to Laura.
All right. Thank you, Emily. Hi, everyone. Happy to be talking with you today about one of my favorite topics, which is the art of rhetoric and the art of persuasion, and how mastering it will help you write more effective proposals, of course. Okay. So first, why do academics struggle with grant writing? Because what you learned when you were training to be an academic won't work when you're trying to get a sponsor to fund your proposal. A funding proposal is an argument. It is not an article. It is not a report, and it requires a different approach to writing. The goal is not merely to communicate information as you do in a journal article, but to communicate information while convincing the reader to take a specific action. You're arguing that a reader should agree to recommend your project for funding because it's exciting, it's feasible, and because you and your team are the best possible people to make it happen. Note, please, that a proposal is not a place for modesty. It's not a place to undersell your capabilities, your institution, your team, your experience. You don't want to come across as entitled or arrogant in your proposal, of course, but you do want to come across as confident and assertive of your team's capabilities and the worthiness of your proposal. So the challenge of how to persuade someone with words has been studied for thousands of years. In fact, it was addressed at length around 2,300 years ago by the Greek philosopher and scientist Aristotle. His book on the art of rhetoric presents a comprehensive framework for persuading a listener or a reader that is still very relevant and highly effective today. Now called the rhetorical triangle, the framework comprises 3 major elements that are critical to making a persuasive argument. The first is ethos, the appeal to trust and credibility. The second is pathos, the appeal to the reader's emotion. And the third is logos, the appeal to reason. I'm going to discuss each one of these briefly in turn. So the first I want to talk about is ethos, the appeal to trust and credibility. Aristotle wrote, "Persuasion is achieved when the speech makes us think the speaker credible." You can be proposing the most innovative and brilliant solution to a pressing problem, but if the reviewers don't see you as credible, there's no way they're going to agree to fund it. So what comprises this trust and this credibility? 3 important elements are your expertise, your depth of knowledge and practical experience, your credentials, your training by legitimate institutions, and your ethics, that you know and follow the rules of good scientific practice. So who needs to be credible? Essentially, every person and institution affiliated with or supportive of your project must be found credible by your reviewer. That includes the authorities cited as support for your ideas and the journals who've published your work and other work on your topic. Here's an incomplete list, mostly complete list, of the components of your proposal that will help build the reviewer's trust in you. Your credentials, the credentials of your teammates and fellow proposers, your prior funding awards, the contributions you and the team have made to your field, years of experience, and most of this is going to be represented in the biographical documents you submit, the CVs, resumes, bio sketches, etc. To appeal to ethos in your proposal strategy, you'll want to cite experts and authorities whose work supports your own, refute counter-arguments, theories, and the findings by others who work in your area that you disagree with, describe your experience and prior work, and use correct grammar and syntax. People do, in fact, as this quote shows, people will jump to conclusions about your trustworthiness based on how correct your grammar and syntax are in your writing. And again, you want to be confident and authoritative, but not arrogant or entitled to the sponsor's money. So here are just a few quick examples of the deployment of ethos in research proposal strategies. Note that the bolded phrases are not the main point of the sentences that they appear in, but they do help establish your credibility and your team's credibility while you're making some larger point in your proposal. Phrases such as a leader in the field of, ASU's acknowledged leadership, noted experts, phrases like this you can put in to while you're making a bigger point to deploy your credibility outside of the bio sketches and so forth. So that is a brief overview of ethos that I wanted to do, and I will turn next to the second element of the rhetorical triangle, which is pathos. So pathos is the appeal to the reader's emotion, to their values, beliefs, worries, hopes, fears, all that stuff. So Aristotle wrote, persuasion may come through the listeners when the speech stirs our emotions. Our judgments when we are pleased and friendly are not the same as when we are hostile. Pathos draws on the reviewer's emotions to persuade them to support the project. It's not just for donor appeals and political speeches. You want to find ways to include pathos elements in your proposal as well. Nope, I'm not going forward. There we go. Sorry about that. Okay, but wait. Is an emotion inappropriate in a research funding proposal? Answer is nope. Pathos is both appropriate and effective. Scientists and academics are trained to value objectivity and to distance the self from their work. That's okay for an article or report. In fact, it's a good thing, but a proposal is a marketing document. I'm going to keep stressing this. Not only are emotional appeals appropriate for a proposal, but including such appeals may go a long way to winning over your reviewer by appealing to their values, beliefs, and priorities. I'll talk about what I mean by all of this. Goals of pathos. You want to, let's see, in your writing, you want to try to make the reviewer feel emotions, depending on which project you're doing, emotions such as concern about the problem you want to solve. That could be anger, sympathy, sadness, compassion for those impacted by the problem or the need, excitement that your project is going to help solve the problem or need that the sponsor is focusing on, admiration for your team and your institutions involved, and perhaps frustration at the slow pace of solutions to fix the problem. Make sure the feelings you're trying to evoke are connected to the benefit that your project offers, which Emily will talk in depth about in a few minutes, and that you're offering a solution, that all of these things will convince the reviewer that you have the right solution to the problem they're trying to solve. Okay, let's pick this. Including elements of pathos in your proposal strategy or other components should include conveying your passion for your project. Judgment and willingness to engage are influenced by emotion, as Aristotle wrote, so use this fact to your advantage. Enthusiasm can be contagious. If you don't come across as emotionally invested in the work, your reviewer won't be either. Try to help the reviewer connect to your work and see it with the same enthusiasm with which you see it. Other ways to include pathos are to give specific examples, to put a face on the problem or the need, to give testimonials from your past successes, to add quotations from those who perhaps need your solution, add vivid imagery of the benefits your project's going to bring, and use rhetorical questions to engage the reviewer's attention. And the last The last element of pathos that I want to talk about is word choice. Strong dramatic adjectives like the ones appearing on your screen will convey your excitement and your conviction about your proposal. They will help convince the reviewer that the problem is urgent and your solution is timely, expert, and crucial. And here are a few examples of ways to convey pathos in your proposal strategy. I just gave a couple, putting a face on project benefits. The first one points to a specific individual who's been living on the streets for 3 years, and that this project is going to help this person apply for the benefits that she's entitled to and move her into housing. Second one, identifying genetic biomarkers has great potential to improve the chances of survival for a person fighting this debilitating disease by allowing providers ... And also include an example of a testimonial from prior work that you would have done in your field for a pilot advocacy program, thanking them for how great the program was. And last on pathos, I wanted to let you compare two versions of problem statements. One is more brain focused, one more heart focused, as the symbols show. Annually, 240,000 women are diagnosed with breast cancer. Compare that to every year in the United States, 240,000 women receive the devastating diagnosis of breast cancer. The disease claims the lives of 42,000 women annually, making it a major public health problem. And that's my brief overview of pathos. And last, I'm going to turn to the third element of the rhetorical triangle, which is logos. So, logos is the persuasive technique of appealing to reason, judgment, and logic. Aristotle wrote that persuasion is effected through the speech itself when we have proved a truth by means of our persuasive argument. The appeal to reason includes all of the facts, statistics, and data you feature in your proposal, including graphics such as tables, charts, and diagrams. It also includes the logical flow of your argument and how your activities will lead to the outcomes the sponsor wants. And logos also includes the overall plausibility of your plan and its potential to resolve the problem the sponsor is focused on. Ways to use logos in your proposal strategy include concise writing. The wordier your sentences and paragraphs are, the harder it is for a busy reviewer to stay focused on the point of your argument. Analogies like the graphic shown here of the earth and peach can show in a simple way the benefits of your proposal, relationship between its elements, outline the problem that you're trying to solve. A clear, simple outline is vital. You want to create this long before you start writing. Section headers can be very helpful in moving the reviewer from point to point and make sure that they don't, you're not starting to wander off on your topics. And carefully structured paragraphs are also vital. You want a topic sentence, you want to deploy evidence and explanation, you want a concluding sentence, and you always want to have a transition to the next paragraph or the next idea. So I recommend creating a logic model, which can discuss now, very early in your proposal process to maximize the application of logos in your proposal. So what is a logic model? It is a roadmap for your project plan. It is a visual of the components of the project and how they're connected. It summarizes the plan and your intended results. Some sponsors actually require these in the proposal. Most don't at this point, but it's a really great exercise to get you started. A logic model can provide important benefits, such as ensuring that the entire proposal team is aligned in the mission and plan, that you've listed outcomes to justify every activity that you're asking for money to perform, and it can help ensure that the broader impact of your project is connected to those activities and outcomes. So here's an example of a logic model. In this schematic, you can see the flow of the components of the project from the inputs to the left. That's the resources needed to complete the work, such as personnel, facilities, instrumentation, supplies, through the outputs, which include your activities, like creating products, interviewing key informants, conducting bench research in XYZ, and connecting that to your outcomes, which are the direct results of your outputs, as well as their broader and long-term outputs. In the logic models, you can see at the bottom in blue, you can also identify the assumptions you're making about how the project will work and any external factors such as potential risks that may impact the success of the project that you may want to consider or address directly in the proposal strategy. Last note on logic models, do not try to reinvent the wheel. There are tons of these templates available online, or write to us and I will send you this one. Okay, so quick recap of this whirlwind tour of the art of rhetoric. 1, try very hard to include all 3 elements, ethos, pathos, and logos in your proposal to make it the most persuasive it can be. You've probably guessed this, but I encourage you to use pathos elements strategically. Don't try to include a pathos element in every single sentence. A grant proposal should prioritize logos and ethos, but do not shun appealing to the reader's emotions to get them to care about the success of your project. Remember, do not write a proposal as you write journal articles and reports because the aim is different. And last, remember that you're selling your idea and you need to make the reviewer agree that it is very important for it to be funded. So that is a recap on the rhetorical triangle. Next, I'm going to turn it over to Emily, who is going to discuss more specific tips and techniques for writing your most persuasive proposal. Emily?
Awesome. Thank you, Laura. So now you've got an understanding of the rhetoric triangle, and you're probably ready to start planning and writing your proposal. This next section will go kind of into the nitty-gritty of how you can write your proposal persuasively, and I'll give concrete examples for setting up your proposal successfully, and then how you can start thinking about planning the writing of your proposal, and then concrete examples of actually writing your proposal. But the first thing that we recommend is creating a proposal plan. And this will just set yourself up for success. And your proposal plan will consist of a checklist, a calendar, and some shell documents or your templates. And to do this, you want to read through the solicitation very carefully and make notes of all the requirements, all the review criteria, and any needed documents to create these 3 proposal plan documents. And just a plug that for larger proposals, those that are $1 million a year and above, you can request proposal management support through our office that can help facilitate this process and manage the proposal for you. And so this next part is compliance. So the first part to getting your proposal funded is to make sure that you get it read. And that requires you to be compliant so that you can make sure that your proposal is getting itself to the reviewers. So this is where that proposal plan comes in place. You're setting up your document with what we call a shell document or your templates. You can see that example there on the screen. And that just outlines the proposal requirements, and it includes any headings. It can set up your formatting requirements. And then you also want to include your review criteria as well as the requirements. And this makes sure that you're responding to the review criteria and not just the requirements. And then just note that you should be looking for any must and shoulds and know any word and page limits just to make yourself more compliant. And that's the first part of being persuasive, in our opinion. It makes sure that you're compliant. And next, we're going to go into how you can think through your proposal in a more persuasive way. And so how we recommend you do that is with storyboarding and proposal brainstorming. Storyboarding is a good place to start when first engaging in the writing place. And our PDW last week was actually with Kyle and Kaushik, and they walked us through the elements of storyboarding and setting up storyboarding. And so I'm just going to touch on how you can bring that one step further into the writing process and into the brainstorming process to be more persuasive. So storyboarding can really start with how you lay out a compelling story and how you can align that with what the funder is asking for. So do you have an opening scene? Is your first section a teaser for everything you're going to say? And thinking through how you're going to capture your audience. You can't really assume that the reader knows the direction you're going. And then storyboarding can also help you kind of look through the physical space and see what sections are going to be where and where you might want graphics throughout. So when you're staring at a blank page, next slide, Laura. You kind of may be wondering where to start. And this is kind of a way that you can think through brainstorming and laying out your idea. And so if you first have done that logic model that Laura suggested, this is kind of like the next good start of brainstorming and bringing that into mapping out your proposal idea by looking through these questions and answering these questions for your proposal. This is better than kind of just like starting out by writing your flowy paragraphs, because this will kind of help you get to the heart of what your answers are. And most solicitations want you to answer these questions as part of the proposal. And these are kind of what reviewers are looking for within your proposal. And this just helps you break your proposal down into bite-sized chunks. So being able to kind of just answer these questions and set yourself up for success when you begin the writing process. And then I just want to show you kind of like a successful large scale proposal, what it can look like when you do storyboarding. This is just an example of like, you want to create your outline, you want to identify your win themes and differentiators, but also you can see like there's large graphics in here and there's call out boxes as well as a table. And so kind of laying out where you want those elements in your proposal is one way to set up your proposal. So now you're kind of in the point where you're starting to write, but it's important to know who your audience is, who's reading your proposal and why do they care? And then who is it going to? Is it going to a federal agency or a nonprofit? Because those are very different audiences. You also kind of want to consider their knowledge of your subject. Even at the PhD level, are they going to be specialized in your field? Also, you have to consider their availability and time to read this. Oftentimes, reviewers don't have a lot of time, and most are often skimming this. So this should make you prioritize certain elements like graphics and putting the most important bits of your proposal up front. Also, maybe what is their interest in your subject? Maybe they're being paid to do this. Maybe they're a staff member. They may not have the same passion that you do. So considering that when you're writing. And then make sure that you think through what's your goal and what do you want them to think when they finish reading? And is that goal coming across to the reviewers? And then what is the funder's goal? And is it aligned with what you're writing? Okay, and so now that we've kind of had that foundation for persuasive writing and foundation for setting up your proposal, we're going to go into some specific tips and tricks into how you can bring more persuasion into your writing. These are kind of high level, and there's lots of information about these on the internet and readings and writings on them. We're going to talk about using the active voice, leading with the benefit, and then hooking the reader. All right, so first, writing in the active voice. This first person active voice really creates a connection with the reader and it reminds the reviewer that you are at the center of what you're proposing. And this goes back to Laura's pathos, which creates that connection with the reader. Persuasive writing is about connecting to your audience and the reader. And so the next example would be something like the third person active, which the third person active really creates a kind of like a distance and objectivity. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's not creating a strong connection to you, the person who's being funded. And looking at the next, which is the passive, we recommend avoiding the passive. Looking at all three of these examples, you can see kind of how the power changes depending on the voice. And if you avoid the passive, because remember the focus is on the work that you're doing and the voice that you're bringing to your work. Okay. And so the next you want to think through what's the benefit of your proposed plan. Everything has a benefit, and there are 4 ways to think through the benefit of your project or your solution. The first is that feature. So the feature is that discrete aspect of your idea, approach, or solution. So maybe you have a lab, a data set, or a technique, and that is unique to you. And then next you have your advantages that you want to identify. So the discrete aspects that create advantage either in time, money, or risk. So maybe you have de-risked a technique. And then what is the benefit? And what is the solicitation asking for? And you want to make sure that you pivot your feature and your advantage so that the benefit matches what the funder is asking for. And then you want to identify your differentiator, that feature that's unique to you and what you're offering and nobody else can bring to the proposal. And then remember to think through and connect all these to why it's important to the funder. Okay, so here we're going to go through a little example of how you might reword a sentence to make sure that you're leading with the benefit. And how you can rewrite a paragraph to lead with the benefit. So this is a good paragraph. It has a lot of elements of success. It does include the first person active, so we will adapt. And then it also features, your feature and your discriminator. So that second sentence, we have our feature and our discriminator. And then lastly, we have our benefit. So this technique will allow archaeologists and historians to decode important historical documents. But remember, we want to start with the benefit, and here we're burying the benefit. So when thinking through rewriting this, we can identify and connect this to the 4 key concepts that we just identified. So when you're writing, identify and connect and fill out these 4 concepts. So for this one, your feature here is that you've got your spectral imaging and you've got an interdisciplinary team. And then you've got your advantages, which we see things that were previously missed. And then we can identify our benefit, which is that we're going to enable new and renewed scholarship on endangered artifacts. And then lastly, we want to find our unique discriminator. It is that this team is the only team that can offer their technology to access new information for other scholars. So we've identified those 4 elements, and now we're going to rewrite that exact same sentence. So we're still writing with the first person active there. We have we will. And then we're saying expand, we're using more language, but we're bringing our benefit up. So it's the first thing that we're identified. We're expanding access and use of important historical documents to archaeologists and historians. And then we're bringing our feature and discriminator still, but we've made it into a stronger differentiator, which is our interdisciplinary team of biologists and medical professionals. And now we're really just convincing people that this is good for that much more people. And what we want to make sure we're doing, and you can see these side by side in the next slide here. They're both good examples, but the one on the right here is just a little bit more future cast, and it's more aggressive, and we've increased the value to the sponsor. And really the takeaway of this example is that you can just organize the same words and ideas in different ways depending on what you want to convey to the reader. And to highlight that you can use benefit statements in any of your documents and all throughout your proposal. They're scalable and flexible, and they can be at the top level of your proposal, so that's the first thing that they can see. Can also be at the top level of certain paragraphs. Oftentimes, academics are trained to lead with the problem statement, but for a proposal, you really want to lead with the benefit where you can, so it's right up front. And you can include it, as we see here, in like your broader impacts in your mentoring plan, even in your something like your facilities plan, just incorporating it and using stronger language in those documents. All right, so the next thing that we're going to talk about is how you can hook the reviewer. And hooking the reviewer is important for being persuasive. It's also extremely impactful if you can hook the reviewer right away in the beginning. Remember, we don't know how much time that a reviewer has, and oftentimes they're skimming. So that first section a reviewer read through might be the only section that they read. And it could be what makes them take the proposal more seriously. I often see proposals where like the meat of the idea and solution is buried 3 pages in. And so this is just a reminder in our Remind proposal PIs to bring that benefit up and bring your hook up to the front. This is important because if you hook your reviewers in the beginning, you can turn them into a champion of your proposal. And so that way, when they're reading through your proposal, they're reading through it with less skeptical eyes, and they're looking for reasons to support you. It's kind of like confirmation bias, and it can color the way they read the rest of your proposal. And so in the next slide, we can kind of look through, this is from the Grant Writers Workshop, and it's an approach that you can think through when writing your first paragraph or in your paragraphs through a logical procession, and how you can kind of organize yourself. So the first thing you would do was start with the gap or critical need. That is the significant problem that the funder cares about or would care about if only they recognize the value of what you have. And then, we recognize the problem exists, but there's not enough knowledge yet. And so then our objective is to solve the problem to avoid whatever issue that gap or critical need is causing. And then the central hypothesis is how you think the problem can be solved. So the knowledge that's needed. And then your specific aims or goals would be next. And that's how you're going to do the work to get that knowledge. And the end is the expected outcome. So this will help advance the funder's mission. You want to link that and bring it up to the objectives. You can kind of bring your objectives and your expected outcomes, and they're linked together. So your objectives are helping you meet your expected outcomes. And then I just wanted to touch on the importance of graphics here. Graphics are one of the key ways to hooking a reader, and we recommend it for a multiple of reasons. One, it increases your chance of being read. And sorry, Laura, there's, you need to click through this one. It also
Okay.
provides visual breaks in reading, and then it helps you just think through your proposal. And this is a plug for one of our PDWs coming up, PDW number 8, which will our art director, Vince Ulrich, will go into a deep dive into proposal graphics on December 10th and the importance of incorporating those into your proposal. And that is the art of rhetoric and the some skills and tips and tricks for persuasive proposal writing. And if you guys have any questions, now we can kind of pivot to questions. If there's, you can either put them in the chat. Also, if you have questions for us, feel free to email. We will be sending this out to everyone who registered. But all of these videos are recorded and also included on our website at funding.asu.edu. Yeah, Adele, did you have a question?
Yes, I want to ask you if you could remind us how much has to be the direct cost of the proposal to get your help and your support? How large does it has to be?
For proposal management support, it has to be $1 million a year. If our graphic designer has availability or bandwidth, they can help. You can reach out to our graphic designer on graphic support. It just depends on their bandwidth. But for proposal management support, it's $1 million a year.
All right, thank you. I appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
Thank you. Also, if I may add, I was surprised with Laura's statement of using testimonials. I didn't know that. I never used one, so I will start considering that. It's good when you build on a previous grant that was successful. Having a testimonial, I think it makes a lot of, especially if they're from patients or providers who were touched by your technology or your intervention. I thought, I never thought about it. I didn't think it was appropriate to use it. So thank you for that.
Oh, sure. You're welcome, and I'm glad you appreciated that point. Just on that, testimonials are both pathos and ethos, because they're helping establish your credibility by pointing to, how previous work you've done worked well and people appreciated it. So they can be very powerful and they're deployed in a proposal strategy. So encourage you to do so.
Laura, if you want to go to the next slide, I think we can end with, I know you guys have already seen this slide, but we do have more PDWs coming up. And so if you wanted to go to researchacademy.asu.edu/event/PDW and sign up for any of the next ones that are coming up, they're all really informative and really great. So you can sign up for those there.